everybody's attention. Good, but let's move on to our next display, which will deal a bit about communication. Why communication? Well, simply because when we reach the Victorian time, 19th century, this is when the world will move into modern communication. It is basically the time we invent the telegraph, the telephone, the wireless, all these technologies still in use nowadays. Nevertheless, okay, soldiers had a tendency to use more traditional system of communication. Okay, simply because back in the past, you couldn't really rely entirely on these new technologies. But the soldiers' system were actually quite efficient. And one of the most popular one was simply to use the soldiers' body language and equipment to send messages. The idea was to simply have a soldiers performing a certain movement or a certain action to actually send a very, very specific message. To understand better this system, we have to use a bit our imagination. Back in those days, when basically you were about to move your troops on the battlefield, you didn't have planes, drones, satellite imaging, Google Earth, all this new kind of stuff. No, unfortunately, you didn't have all that. And therefore, basically, before moving your troops on the battlefield, you would choose a few soldiers you didn't like very much and ask these soldiers to move in front of you simply to check where the enemy was. And if these soldiers didn't encounter enemy presence, from time to time, only thing they would have to do is stick their headgear on top of their weapon and raise that headgear as high above their head as possible. And as soon as you would see the soldiers in such a position, you would know that land is clear and therefore it is safe to move in that direction. On the other end, if you encountered enemy presence, well, very quickly you would crack a shot in the air to get everybody's attention. And then one of these soldiers would simply raise his rifle a number of times above his head, and that number of times would indicate the size of the enemy. Then he'd simply pinpoint his weapon or wave his arm in the direction of the incoming enemy. Message. As you can see, basically as soon as you got a good shot, you have everybody's attention. Okay, the message we are sending right now is an enemy regiment is coming from that direction. You wanted reinforcement, simply waving your arm or your headgear in such a way would mean we need reinforcement right here. Needless to say that the faster you move, the faster you needed this bloody reinforcement. It wasn't in the drill manual, but it's something that people picked up very quickly on the battlefield. So that system was extremely efficient, except basically for one thing, you could only send very short messages over very short distances. To increase the complexity and range of your message, you would have the soldiers use the semaphore flag. The semaphore flag is the use of color flag to send messages. Everybody knows that by waving a white flag, you send the message you want to basically surrender or chit-chat a bit, parley, okay, to catch your breath before starting the festivities right afterwards. But if you took two flags and put these flags in specific position, you would represent specific letter of the alphabet. To train all these positions to your soldiers, you would have them repeat these positions again and again until they would become second nature. The semaphore drill that used to go like this. Semaphore flag in alphabetical order. Make ready. Commence. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. That's right. Take, shape, fold, out. And like this, combining all these letters, you would be able to send normal messages. The system was extremely efficient. Why? Well, simply because it allowed soldiers to actually communicate even if they were illiterate. back in those days, the soldiers would come from the lowest class of society, which never had a chance to go to school. And this could create a problem in the communication department. You're trying to send a message with people around you who couldn't spell their name properly. Well, not really. Why? Because even if I couldn't read and write, but for a few hours, as soon as I would hear the letter A, I would have to move my arm in such position, B in such position, C in position, D, E, and so on and so forth. Eventually, after a few weeks of constant repetition, I would be transformed in some kind of human machine, meaning that when the officers will want to send his message, only thing to do, write his message on a piece of paper and spell that message. Therefore, me, as soon as I would have the C is C, I know we're relaying a message. CC standing for carbon copy. Same system using modern days computers. But then you would have, for example, C, A, R, T, then B, A, R, R, E, L, E, 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 R, C, C, card, bar, and beer. I'm asking for some drinks later on. With the weather like that, a fresh beer would do good. Okay, you wanted the number, simply cross the flag on top of your head. We're going numerical. 1, 2, 3, 4, back to alphabetical. I erase everything I have just said. I simply want whiskey instead. Okay, that system was extremely efficient. Why? Well, simply because it allowed the soldiers to send up to 12 words every minute, 1 word every 5 seconds. The same speed as sending a text message on your mobile phone nowadays. The only difference would be the range. Maximum range of those flags, we're talking 3 miles, 5 kilometers. The color of the flag would simply depend on the background in front of which you are standing. Dark backgrounds, clear flags, clear backgrounds, dark flags. But as well, you try to constantly choose a flag which has no other kinds of meaning. That's why my white flags, I've got that blue stripe right in the middle of them. So when I start waving them, there's no confusion between fire at will and I surrender, for example. Good, but all these systems, as efficient as they could be, okay, would always lack something, distance, range. And that's why 19th century, everybody will start to actually develop new technologies to constantly increase our range of communication. But the movement into modern communication will not be because actually we invented all these new technologies, but simply because at the beginning of the Victorian time, we created a new communication code. Do you know which code I'm referring to? Morse code, exactly, consisting of dot and dashes. Combining these dot and dashes, we could represent different letters of the alphabetical code, for example. Everybody knows about the Morse code because everybody used it. But do you know why the Morse code became so popular? And that's my second question. And if you think about it, I'll come back in an hour. Nobody moves until I get the answer. Well, basically, I'm going to give you a hint. What can you use the Morse code with?
Sound, yeah.
Sound? Yeah. What else?
Light.
What else?
Lights.
Yeah. What else? Anything. The Morse code is a binary system. You only have 2 options, either a dot or a dash, meaning anything allowing you to represent that dot and that dash will allow you to communicate. You can use sound, whistle, quick blast, long blast, the dot and the dash, but you can use the absence of sound, silence, the time interval between 2 sounds. I clap quickly twice, that's my dot. I clap, I wait a bit longer. I clap, that's my dash. Therefore, using such a system, if you wanted to send the SOS message consisting of 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots, it would simply be sent like this: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that message would be sent. This combined with electricity, you automatically have your telegraph. But you could use light, you could use smoke signals, you could use bananas and orange, you could use nuts on a piece of rope, it doesn't matter. Best example with my semaphore flag over here. Move the flag 90 degrees, you represent a dot. Move the flag 180 degrees, you would represent the dash. Therefore, if you wanted to send that message, well, the message using my semaphore flag over here would be sent like this. Touch right, attention! Semaphore flag, Morse code, make ready! Come eight, 1, 2, 3, oh! 1, 2, 3, 8! 1, 2, 3. That's right, attention! Fold out, and like this, your message would be sent. Okay, but the most important advantage of the Morse code is that now with such a code, you will not need to have anybody speaking your language to send your message. Meaning that if you were British in those days, lost in the middle of the empire, let's say Kandahar, Afghanistan, trying to wire a message back to Hong Kong via New Delhi, your message might have to cross an entire continent, being relayed by a lot of different people who might not speak English, not really much of a problem. Write your message on a piece of paper, translate it in Morse code, reach the first telegraphic station, and give that Morse code message to the telegraphic operator. And that person might have never heard a single letter of English, but he would still be able to deliver that message. Everybody started to use the Morse code. Why? Well, simply because the Morse code was the first universal language when we talk about the world of communication. Okay, binary system offering you limitless possibilities in the tools you can use and the people you can use will be exactly the same system used for modern days computers, except that we'll replace the dot and a dash by a 1 and a 0 instead. Any questions? Do you know about the final exam at the end of your stay? We need volunteers to clear the stables. Okay, well, if we do not have any kind of questions, well, now you can, for the one of you who just arrived, continue your visit. In about 15 minutes, we will have our next display. Always the same idea. We will make an announcement. Okay, and if you're interested, we will meet over here. Then after that, we will have a quick lunch break, allowing us to prepare for this afternoon, because 2 o'clock, we'll have basically a full tour of the fortification, a musketry display, we fire a cannon, an introduction about basically horses and cavalry in the Victorian time. At any time, any kind of questions, never hesitate to come to me and shoot this question. We have as well those displays over here, okay. And basically, if you want to hold one of these, take pictures with them, feel free to do so. Okay, from here downwards, they're all original, 1853, 66, 74. Okay, so do not drop them on the floor. Oh, you'll see me cry. But basically, that's the idea, so you can have a real feel of what it was in those days. Thank you very much.
Thank you.